Well, 2 more days that I'm going to devote to the writing of verse, today and tomorrow. A little correction on what I did yesterday. When I quoted my own sonnet, sonnet in anapestic tetrameter, room of the rare book. My search for the past of the skills found the room of the rare book was what I meant to say. It's the rare book room, is the way people normally say it. I had gone down to the Smithsonian Institute to see an original version of Diderot's encyclopedia, something that the average person can never see. Okay, now this is going to be a little bit like show and tell here. First of all, the rhyme chart. If you're going to try to write some of the things that I've described, you're liable to need this, and I wasn't so sure that I did a good enough job to bring it into focus for you, and I think you'll find that very useful. I know there's rhyming dictionaries, but I don't believe it's as useful as the rhyme chart. So that was another shot at making that available to you. Maybe someday I'll make it available online. Now, before I go on to this, let me tell you about a buddy of mine. His name's Michael Hernkane. He and I are very good friends, and we go back a long time. He's the best writer that I have ever known personally. I'm not going to say he's the best writer ever, but that I've actually known personally. He is a truly wonderful writer. And he and I many years ago, we used to duel for the fun of it. There was one of our duels. Each one of us would write 12 poems and publish them. That was our poems, and then there was a second folio, we called it. I'm not so sure we ever actually published this in our homemade way. Maybe I should get a little bit closer, but that's sort of homely looking. And then here's still another version, some more poems. And on the back of this one are the rules. Let me see if I can get that so you can see it. The rules for dueling poets. We had a lot of fun with that. Anyway, I wanted you to know about that, and actually that leads into something else. He and I were always competitive. We continue to be competitive, and as you can see, we dueled in our poetry. Well, at a certain point, we decided to have a contest to who could write the best Christmas story. And I cheated, I guess I'd have to say, because I chose, it's a Christmas story, but I used poetry. I wrote it as a poem, and he was a little bit put out. Anyway, that I had done that, because that seemed like, whoa, that's bringing in the heavy guns. He's much better at, well, he's a better writer than I am, but he's much better at prose than I am. Anyway, this was the result. It's called The Eve of Christmas. And I think I may read this online. I'm thinking very seriously about doing that over the Christmas vacation. But just in case I don't, I'll tell you about it. What I did, it tells a story. It's a narrative. This is supposed to be a story. Well, it is a story. I just used poetry. It's narrative verse. And when I had my story, and then I had to decide, well, what kind of verse am I going to use? What verse form? I thought to myself, well, what's the very best example that there is of narrative verse? And I thought, John Keats' The Eve of St. Agnes. That's the best that I knew of. It had 42 stanzas. It was written in a kind called Spenserian Stanzas, and I'll tell you about them in just a moment. But still on the eve of Christmas, so I decided, well, I'll use that as my model. I'll plan my story so carefully that there will be 42 stanzas, and I'll use Spenserian Stanzas, and I did it. It took me a long time. It took me about an hour a piece to write those stanzas. They're difficult. So anyway, you probably will hear more about that. If I can set my camera up in a comfortable way where I can be warm and my hands aren't shaking, and I can read it, I think I'll read it to you. But I won't make it as a regular day. It won't be like day 80 or it'll be 79.1A, B, C, something like that. I don't know. All right, but I needed to tell you about that because these Spenserian stanzas, well, here are the poem. Here it says the poems of Spenser. Edmund Spenser. I have this from college. All of these, oh man, all of these are Spenserian stanzas. This is called the Fairy Queen. Most of what you've got here. I don't know if you can see that. These are all Spenserian stanzas. It's unbelievable because they're hard to write. My daughter read all of the Fairy Queen. I couldn't believe it. She read it and she said, yeah, she liked it. When I was in college, I think I read part of the last canto or something. People that are that smart scare me. But in any case, Spenserian stanzas. Here's the way they go. They're iambic. Oh, stop. Well, no. I'll tell you about them. They're iambic. Except for the last line. The ninth line is they're iambic. They're all iambic. But this is hexameter. This is pentameter. The last line is called an Alexandrine, and it's 1 beat, 1 foot longer. The rhyme scheme is what makes these so tricky. A, B, A, B. Then you pick that sound up. B, C, B. Now that means you've had to rhyme 4 times on one sound. And then you pick that sound up with the Alexandrine at the end. So one time you rhyme twice, one time you rhyme 4 times, and one time you rhyme 3 times. Well, that drives you deep into your knowledge of the language to be able to come up with that, to work your language around that rhyme and not have it sound really stupid. But it can be done. Mine were, I wrote 42 Spenserian stanzas in the eve of Christmas. And maybe what's more interesting is not so long after that, I was teaching 9th grade as a substitute teacher. I had the kids for the whole year. And by the end of the year, I had shown them how to write verse. And we wrote this poem. This is a narrative poem, Jennifer and David. Some of these are, not all of them, but some of these, oh my glasses, some of these are in, this is awkward. I had my glasses all ready to use, but some of these are Spenserian stanzas. They're hard, and some of them aren't all that good. I picked one, though, that I wanted to read. This tells a story, and I'll have more to tell you about this story later, but anyway, here's a Spenserian stanza written by T.B. I think that was Teresa Bennett. Back in, 70-something. The goatherd didn't like being seen with Jen because the family he came from was poor. But David stayed, walked Jenny home, and then he helped this farm girl fix the split barn door. All seemed a pleasure, which had been a chore. While talking they had tea and Easter cake. Jenny gave her newfound friend a tour. They walked around the barn, woke up a snake, which both agreed to let slide off for mercy's sake. I just opened it up and just hit that one. It's the middle of a story that I probably will tell you more about later on. But a few years later, I was at this point substitute teaching 11th and 12th graders. Oh, and before I forget, why I'm doing this partly is to show you that students can do this. Back on sonnets, I had 7th graders write sonnets when I taught them verse, and there were probably a dozen of them that wrote sonnets. They weren't really very good, maybe one of them, but they can do it. Well, anyway, the Song of Marion, and you're liable to hear a good bit more about this one. The Song of Marion. This was the product of 2 years of work, really, back in 1982. It says here, and what it is I call it an epic poem. It's not a true epic, but it's in 4 cantos, and it tells a very long story. Now there they are. These are Spenserian stanzas. For the most part, once I'd settle on Spenserian stanzas, that's what I chose to use. And I don't know if I will read this online or not. I might, if I get that comfortable place, because I'm going to have more to say. I'm going to have more to say about this. It could even involve you. but I think this is enough for one video.